And you've just heard Safety, a single taken from the album Shadows, which is a collaboration between Conscious Route and Superman on the Beat. And I'm joined by both now. Hello there.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. And it's good to speak to you both again. As we mentioned before we started recording, it's been a while. But before we talk about the album, how did the collaboration come about?
Yeah, so it's quite an interesting one actually, because obviously I've been producing for about 5 years, and I usually sort of reach out to artists that I really that like I want to work with. So I think I reached out to Roland. I think it was maybe about 3, 4 years ago. Um, just saying to him that I really like his music, and it'd be cool to work at some point. And then I think I sent him beats, and like just how it sort of happens sometimes, like artists maybe don't really feel the beats. So he wasn't really feeling them at that point. Um, and then it was like maybe a couple of years later, like I sent him a few more, and then he was like, "Yeah, these are sick. Like I want to use some of these." So I think it started off with like a handful, and then it sort of just developed into an album because I'd sent him more, and he was like, "Yeah, I want to use these as well." So then it kind of just developed into an album, and it happened really naturally as well, because like we would often have like conversations, just like not really about music, but more about like life and like just like the industry. Um, and so we sort of spoke regularly about that sort of thing when we weren't working together. So it kind of naturally just happened, which was really cool. So now we made a really cool project.
And how was it from your point of view, Roland?
Yeah, well, I think Sanjeev hit the nail on the head in terms of um, we had more of a connection just chatting, and I was quite inspired by I suppose Sanjeev's journey in terms of like his want to make um, to be the voice and the inspiration for people from the disabled community to, really show them what's possible if you kind of put your mind to it. And I was just struck by his level of, just soundness and commitment to not just art, but his community and being a voice. Um, and obviously, like I come from a kind of community working background of doing youth work in community and doing counselling in the community. So I just felt like we had a lot of things in common in terms of the way that we thought about life and things. And although, like Sanjeev hasn't had a lot of racial background, but he has had a lot of um, what I'm trying to find the word. I suppose a lot of negative experience from being disabled and
Yeah.
how he's been kind of judged through that, in terms of so in that way we were connecting as well in terms of like how you can be kind of ostracized for being different. And I think all that kind of pulled together into the music as well, because we were discussing quite deeply things that were wrong with the industry, things that were kind of not right in society, and just bonding as people. And I think for me to make music with people, I do need to connect. I can't just write with people just because they're good at rapping, or good at making beats. I feel like it has to be something about like our connection that makes the music into what it is.
So actually kind of getting to know each other is at the center of the project and this album in particular.
I think that getting to know each other it was like, you know, the egg before the chicken. Do you know what
Yeah,
I mean? I think we really got to know each other. And then the beat, because it was like that. He was sending me beats and I really liked the chats we were having and the beat. I liked some of the ideas of the production. The producers that I was working with at the time, I just had a lot more experience or a lot more polished at that time. But
yeah,
Sanjeev was like working relentlessly day in, day out, making beats. And within a year or two, he just really improved incredibly. And then I think Jazz on Song was the first track that we done, wasn't it?
yeah.
Sanj?
I think so. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
And I was blown away by it. I was like, oh yeah, I'm feeling this. Let's go with this. And every beat he was giving me after that, I was like, oh, I need that beat as well, and that beat. And I think we thought about an EP, didn't we? And then it just, the album just came. Like it was
Yeah.
it was going to be 6 tracks, and then it just drew to 8, and then it was like 10, and it was like, okay.
Yeah, it happened so
Do you know what I mean?
naturally. I think it just
Yeah,
happened really like the whole thing and the way we worked and got to know each other. Like the whole thing just sort of fell into place, which I think was really, really cool.
We're going to hear Jazz Unsung later, so it's good to know that was the kind of the original piece of music that you worked on. And Sanjeev, those conversations that you were having with Rolling, that seems to be, are they at the center of the album then?
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, I feel like there were definitely topics that we touched on, especially in terms of like the industry and how it's sort of as independent artists, it's quite difficult to navigate that. And I think that's also where with the name of the album Shadows
Right.
kind of came in as well, because it was kind of like Roland was talking about issues that were like in the shadows, maybe in the industries that people aren't talking about, that we kind of should be talking about more. Um, and also shadows in terms of like, I guess that side of ourselves that we need to go towards to like for acceptance as well, like the shadow side.
Mhm.
So I think yeah, that's kind of where the name and the sort of general idea of the name of the project sort of came from.
And how did you approach making the album? And you said it was quite kind of organic and it happened, but in terms of the practicalities of doing it, there's is there live music on it, samples, a bit of both. What's the situation there?
And yeah, so production wise, it's like a mixture of like samples and also like musicians. For example, in Safety, it's actually Rowan's cousin. And is it, no, sorry, uncle and nephew
no,
on that track.
uncle and cousin. Yeah, uncle
Oh,
and
okay,
uncle
yeah,
and cousin, and then my and a good friend, obviously Chris Grieve, who's like a friend slash kind of guy that I've worked
yeah,
with for quite a while now. So yeah,
yeah. So it's kind of like a mixture. And I think the cool thing as well with the album, it's so many different like vibes. So it can go from like the jazzy one, like jazz unsung or like smooth, but then it can go to like really hard kind of trap and hip hop. So like I think it's got a lot of variation in terms of like the production as well. And I think that's
yeah.
something that makes it work so well.
I think like I'd done like Lost Roots and I'd done Belters, and Lost Roots was like a very solo project. There wasn't really any features on that, and it was quite heavy in the music, and you know um it had some lightness in it, but I think the topics were really heavy, the music was really heavy, and then I'd done Belters, which was kind of complete completely featured, like on every track that was
Yeah.
featured. So I was trying to get a balance. I think for myself, I was trying to get a balance in between those two projects, but also I was listening a lot to the time to people like Mac Miller and who's the other guy that does a lot of stuff with Mac Miller, who um, who sings quite a lot and who raps. Can't think off the top of my name, it'll come back to me. But I was listening a lot to their music, and what I noticed, a lot of their themes could be quite heavy, but they were done in such a way on quite lighter music, and it would be easier to digest. So part of my hope was with Shadows that I'd make something that was both kind of, quite like Conscious Route, where there's a lot of introspective topic matter, and I'm making points, but I'm also trying to do it in a way where people can digest it a little bit easier, both in the musical sense and in the lyrical sense. And I'm hoping that comes across a little bit more in Shadows. Like it's a bit lighter, because I think some of my music can be very dense in both those factors.
There is definitely a range of styles across the album. And how did you work each track? Did you have the production first or the lyrics, or was it a mixture of both?
I think we
Um,
pretty much had the beats first, didn't we? And then
yeah,
yeah, I just sent the beats and then Rowan kind of wrote to it, I think afterwards, and then he like would send me back the vocals, and then I would like kind of mix it with the vocals. I think
I
that's
would
kind of
I
how.
would Yeah, I would say that you did work more. You know, sometimes when you get beat makers and they send you the beat, you put the vocals to them, and that's that. And
Yeah, yeah,
they call themselves producers. Like it wasn't that. It was like he'd send me something that was quite like a loop, and then that would be like, I'd get him to extend it to maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and then I'd write to that, get the rough shape of it, and then we'd send it back, and there would be a bit of back and forth with and then he'd add some extra production in, add some dropouts in, you know, and then we'd say, oh, actually, this track could do with a bit of horn, like we did on Safety. So yeah, I think it was much more how I'd done things like Lost Roots and how I'd done Belters. It was kind of working in that way. It was much more like a back and forth conversation. And same with the end mixes. There were certain bits that, you know, I think dub plate, there was a bit of, no, it wasn't dub plate, sorry, plastic bag at the end. It was
yeah. I
like,
think you like some bits, and
he,
then I didn't like some bits, and then yeah,
yeah, so we had to I remember we had some conflict at times where we were trying to work out, and then we had some online sessions, didn't we, where we ended up finished the track like
yeah,
co-producing at
yeah,
least the ending or something like that, and finding the parts that were working. So it was I think towards the end when we come back to put the album together, it was much more collaborative. In the beginning, I was just like I was getting sent beats and I was writing the bars, and then I was like I'd have rough ideas and I'd send him the rough ideas and he'd be going, yeah, they're cool, they're cool. And then I think towards the end, there was much more sort of like refining those ideas. And I think that part was really collaborative. And even when we were bouncing down all the stems, didn't we? Because like, yeah, so it was good. Like I quite like the process. Since we were doing this all remotely, we never, apart from shooting some of the videos, we'd never been in the same room to do the project really.
yeah.
Like, so I felt it went pretty well in that fact since we've done it all remotely, and it sounds like a cohesive project that we've met and done together.
And I think down to a lot of the live music that you see on it, it actually sounds like quite a live sound as well. You know, when you've got the strings and things like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think just some of the samples that Sanjeev uses, isn't it? Like in terms of Superman on the Beats production. Yeah,
yeah. I think that's actually kind of like a big part of my production is that like a lot of it does kind of sound live, because of kind of like my influences with more kind of live music like rock and metal and stuff like that. I feel like that's kind of how I implement that sort of live sort of sound, even though it's like samples and stuff. It kind of has that live sound.
And Sanjay, you mentioned that you've been doing this for 5 years now, I think you said.
2020, yeah, 5 years.
Yeah. So do you feel yourself that you're constantly improving and learning new things?
Yeah, 100%. When I was actually saying that earlier on to one of my friends, it's like it feels like every beat I make is like the best beat I've made. And I feel like it's sort of yeah, I feel like that sort of shows like to me the progress, and I feel like every time I make a beat, I learn something new literally every time. So I think that's like yeah, I definitely feel that my beats have definitely improved in terms of mixing, like especially. So like I might have had the ideas, but now it's like the mix has allowed them to sort of elevate to the next level. So yeah, I've kind of felt that difference for sure. And but I think it's sort of like a testament to the time that I've put in, like from the start, just like every day, just putting in the time. So yeah, I think it kind of shows for sure.
And Roland, can you see that kind of progression? Because you said that Sanjeev had got in touch earlier, maybe just the time wasn't right, or you felt what was there wasn't right, but now it was.
yeah, I know a lot. I feel like it was interesting because I was having a chat with my uncle. He's over in the UK at the moment, because of like family and friends, weddings and stuff. And I was just having a chat with him on the phone about when you start to practice more and do things like daily, which I know that Sanjeev is a guy that's on his beat grind, like every day he's just like making beats and stuff. And I think that's why he has progressed in such a short time to the level. And when I hear his ideas, I just think that his production's got there's certain producers that have a particular signature and a different view that just separates them from, like 10 other producers who are just, jumping on a certain grind of a sound, and I think Sanjeev's definitely got that within his production. He's got like a, a, a sound that you can hear is his, it's a signature sound, like Timberland has his sound, or like the Neptunes had their vibe, and you could tell that their beats. You can tell when you hear a Sanjeev beat. It's just different, even when he does a boom bap, and the fact that he's diversity in tunes, like um even like on the album you can see that diversity. But we've got some more beats off of him for a project an album that I'm working on with Wens, and he's given us a few tracks for that. And yeah, the beats are like, DMB and a mix of styles, and it's just immense. The production quality is high, and it's exciting. The sounds are different. So yeah, it's really good to see him come into his own, and also, that we do have a connection and a friendship, and even we have our challenges, we work together quite well, and we've managed to put together a really good body of work. And it's hard in the music industry, putting out projects and getting things together and being organized in that way. So you know doing that with a person, particularly when you don't live near them, is quite a challenge. So yeah, big up for all the hard work, Sanjeev, man. It's what
Yeah,
all the
thank you,
fruits.
man. You too, you too. Like, I
Yeah,
feel like when I was kind of starting to come into the scene, um, Rolling like was probably one of the artists that really, I guess really stood out to me in terms of lyrically and like in the hip hop landscape. And like when I heard the stuff, he was always somebody that I wanted to work with at some point. Um, Hence why obviously I sent the beats quite
Mhm.
a while ago. So I'm glad we finally got to make it work. 'Cause I feel like in the landscape of the scene in Scotland, like lyrically, you're definitely in the category with like the gasps and like the low keys, like those legends. Like I would put you in that space. So
that's good to
if
hear.
you
I don't
like,
I don't always put I don't always put myself in that space, because I just find, some of the stuff that, Loki's new album is
yeah,
immense. And you know but I suppose what I do is different, and I know that I'm very like, um my ability to adapt to different soundscapes is different, because I've had a lot of
yeah,
different experience on different music, where I feel like Loki and Gasp are immensely talented, and
yeah,
with their background and I suppose their history of what they've been through as people, that shines through their music. But they're out and out rappers, where I'd say I'm broader than rap, because I've done so much different stuff and worked in so many different ways. Um, and obviously Loki's obviously a writer, and he's not just a rapper, he's much more than that. But in terms of getting on a beat, so yeah, I never say I would never put myself or go, I would never go, I'm as good as those guys, because that's just not what I think or how I think about it. But equally, I'm really comfortable with what I can do and what I am, and I know my strengths and weaknesses. So and I love the music that I'm making, so and I'm proud of that. But yeah, I'd never want to battle either of them. Like,
But what I would say about both of you is you're regularly putting out great music over the years since I've spoken to you. As I said, Roland, I can't believe it's 4 years since I spoke to you. But you just have some big
yeah.
albums out, some big, important albums, I think, in that time. So you managed to kind of keep going despite perhaps the difficulties that just releasing music has.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's harder for artists these days with the financial strains. And I had a kid. Also, I've got a daughter she'll be 3 in October. And becoming a parent and trying to bring up a family, supporting a family when my girlfriend's working part-time, and that had a massive impact on my ability, in time and financial ability. Um, and it's just been really hard. But I found a way to, I practice music more than I ever have. I'm still really passionate about growing. And I think it's important. Like I know that art's such an integral part of me. And I think it's important for me to be a very present dad and a present kind of partner with my girlfriend, as well as important for me to keep developing the art and the community of artists like around us. Like I've been doing stuff with the collective, which is like working with a mix of musicians, artists, rappers, singers, and that's been really a great experience. But it's very hard, you know, trying to hold it all together and work full time. It's just like, what am I doing? Sometimes it gets a bit much.
And Sanjeev, you said you feel that you've improved as an artist and a producer, but have you also seen it's increasingly challenging to release music?
Yeah, I think it kind of happens when naturally you do something more like, I guess you have more ambition. So then it's like how to manage the ambition with the tools you have, if that makes sense. So like how
Yep.
to make the most of what you have, um, to grow. So I guess it's quite hard to sort of manage. But I think also the more in the industry or like releasing musics to me, like if you're releasing music, you're part of the industry.
Sure.
So I think the more you release music, the more I guess you realize about the industry, um, in terms of like how things are run and like how who's actually running things and how the industry is managed, like how a lot of artists, I guess, are used for like their gain, like when they're not independent. So I think like that's kind of what has made it more hard is like realizing more that
Yeah,
it's maybe not. Yeah, it's not as simple as it seems to manage the industry,
Sure.
and there's so many different
I,
layers.
I,
So yeah,
I'd just like to add to that that I think what Sound Youth talks about is that like most industries, it's not really run by like someone's kind of talent and stuff. It gets to a point where it's just about financial, and
yeah,
if you've got the financial investment, whether that's a lot of it's like pay to play, pay to get played, pay to get reviews, pay for exposure, and it's quite a big pyramid scheme. So whether that money's coming from grants or whether that money's coming from your pocket, or a lot of people on road, you know, they make money and they put it in from other things. You just got to understand that, you know, you get to a certain level in the industry and it's really hard to get higher unless you've got some kind of financial backing or some kind of people um, on a management side or some kind of co-sign by someone who's already doing well in the industry to push you to a larger platform.
Mm.
Um, and I know a lot of people that do music kind of full time, and they're just about keeping their heads above water. And I think in the last decade, even talking to someone who like made money out of you know, doing music for music libraries and getting some really good things and working with a major label, getting publishing and stuff. It's all changing. It's all drying up. The AI is changing it. Social media is changing it. Spotify's changing it. So the whole design of the industry is getting deconstructed and reconstructed all the time as we speak, as all these things. And it's just, I think it becomes more about how good you are at marketing yourself on social media, like making videos and doing all these different things, than how good you are at just being an artist, where it used to be more about kind of music. And it's really, I think it's really hard. And if you're, you know, working full time, you got a family, you know, for me, it's really hard to keep up with some of these people that are just not working, living at home with their parents. It's like, how can I compete with that level of time to grow and get better at all these different aspects of what makes an artist these days? It's like, so I don't know about you, Sanjeev, but I just focus on the bits that I enjoy and I do a little bit of
yeah,
that. But I also just think if you make good music and you take it to the people and then you do some good content and you put it out, you can still make some noise. And I feel like I can see it growing and I can see it, but I'm not gaining millions of followers or breaking or trending, but I don't think that's my goal anymore. It's really about enjoying the process of the
Yeah.
art that I do and still trying to build a humble following and connect with people and, you know, work with decent people like Superman on the Beat and other like-minded, you know, artists in the area. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think I kind of feel the same as well because like I had a session, it was about a couple months ago, and it was with I don't know if you guys know Chelsea K. So I was in the studio with Chelsea
Yeah.
K
Yeah.
and
She's
T
amazing.
Kid. Um, and it was just like it was such an amazing session, and like we just made something really cool. And I feel like I was kind of in that space anyway, but I think that session really made me realize like if I could just do that every day, like if I could be in the studio and make songs with cool people every day, like that's my goal as an artist. Like it doesn't matter if it's like the biggest artist or like known artist or whatever, as long as it's with people that I connect with and that there's like those moments in the studio where you make something like magical.
Yeah.
Like that's like the
It's
reason why I do it. So like I think it kind of goes back to there's a lot of realizations the more you release music that you kind of end up going towards like staying independent and just like wanting to create those moments with people.
Well, that is the perfect place to finish because the two of you have created a cracking album. I've been listening to it a lot over the last few days before our interview. So, Roland, Sanjeev, great to talk to you both again.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
cool, man. Thanks so much. Cheers for getting us back in for a chat.
Yeah. And this is Conscious Route and Superman on the Beat and Jazz Unsung.